All right, guys, here you are. You know you're at the Healthy Hustle podcast, and I am so excited to have the amazing Ashley here. Not only have I known this woman for such a long time, and she is just a pioneer in this coaching world, but she is a doctor of acupuncture. She's an amazing mama. She's an amazing coach in this world, and I am so excited to have her here talking about epigenetics and the root cause of disease. So, girl, break it down on what we are jamming about today.
Well, I think we wanted to kind of talk about some different things that we both love: detox, epigenetics, and root causes. I think both of us have a lot of different layers going on with our own health, and then that's what drew us to this initially. We realized everything was kind of connected and you need to work layer by layer, and that you really can't separate things out, but we need to put the pieces together and just have kind of a long systematized detox to really hit all the layers, and that sometimes it keeps going. People can get a resurgence of something, a reactivation of a virus, re-exposure to mold or whatever it might be. And right now stress is triggering a whole lot of things to kind of resurface. So we need to be gentle on ourselves and realize it's a process and a marathon, not a sprint.
That's why I remember you and I were talking right before we started recording this, and I was saying that when we hit a wall, all of the detoxes, you and I were saying that we did them back when we were young. I think I was put on my first elimination diet when I was 18. Mm-hmm. And we hit a wall in our family, and somebody said, I think it's time to do genetic testing. And the person who said to me, the biochemist said, Rachel, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And it seems that you're a sprinter. It seems that you do really hardcore. And I remember thinking, no, this has to be a sprint. How can this go on for this long? I know I can accomplish it. And I think that's what a lot of coaches, we feel when we go to school, or we feel when we, are attacking our health issue. And so can you, for everyone listening, whether they are, a person struggling with their health and looking to hire you, or a coach in this business, take us back to even why you got into the epigenetics, and even before that, were the detox is working. I know that you work with hormonal issues. What led you to the epigenetic part?
So I'm trying to think how I got interested in the epigenetics. Mostly because I'm so obsessed with food and detoxes and cleanses. Even since high school, I had started out in California. There's Dr. Schultz had a company. And so we would do these long detoxes. I did a seasonal detox starting in high school. And that was all based on traditional herbs and Dr. Christopher. So these are old school teachers. Wow. And I loved them. I was doing everything. I was obsessed with the liver as soon as I started reading about it. And so I think that's the thing that's kind of interesting, is I really do believe that food is medicine. What we're doing every single day really can either harm us or very much help us. And food is something we control. It's not something the doctor has to tell you, to do or take or whatnot. And so I always had that part of my system and my beliefs. And so when I read that there were actual foods that could help your genetic expression be optimized or have some unfavorable expression, then I was fascinated with that. So I was in the middle of getting my doctorate. And so I wanted my thesis to be on epigenetics and what Chinese herbs that we used had these epigenetic effects. So I focused on green tea because I'm someone who drinks matcha all the time. And a chemical constituent in curcumin, resveratrol, which is in the grape skins, and then sulforaphane, which is in all the cruciferous vegetables. So I really wanted to pair kind of these ancient wisdom thoughts and practices with the kind of the newest cutting edge information, which is this epigenetics. So basically, I really started to dive deep into that. And a huge component of that is how we detox. And because I've always loved detoxes, I thought this was really fascinating. And then now, even in the last few years, there have been all these amazing labs that can tell you, your body burden load with environmental toxins, and mold exposure, virus exposure, things like that. So of course I love this because you have all these hunches your whole life, or, I'm someone walks by with perfume and I get a migraine.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like my bucket was full, and any little assault, it would overflow and create some problems. I guess long story short, I was someone who had all these migraines and joint pain in my early 20s, which I went to my doctor and they said, well, it's probably something autoimmune. It's not going to show up on labs probably for at least 10, 15 years. There's nothing you can do. So then I started doing some research on the food, and I didn't totally take out gluten and dairy because I cheated once a week at least, because I couldn't give it up for 10 years. And so the things never went away, but I knew if I ate them, I would feel bad. And it's not an allergy. It was just like, it would happen within hours of me eating it, or even a couple days after. So again, like, 15 years ago, this was not common knowledge. Like you went through a lot of things a long time ago. And so everyone just said there's, gluten sensitivity or dairy is only digestive.
Yep.
So I said, but that's not true. Like I feel it in all my little, all the hands, fingers, toes, everything. So anyway, I just kind of kept diving into what food could do, the inflammatory process, again, the elimination diet, and these things, it's just, they're not actually getting to the problem. They're just removing triggers. So as I paired that with the genetics, and it showed kind of like why I wasn't getting chemicals out better, it was really fascinating. And then I took these labs, and the lab company said, you're one of the most toxic people we've ever seen. And I do live in Los Angeles, so there's that whole issue. So a lot of the big cities have problems with that. But I mean, I've eaten organic, clean, skincare only in glass bottles for, the last 10 years, never buy plastic water bottle, nothing in plastic. I'm like the crazy person with all that. So, I just started putting together all the different pieces with like different conditions I had, and I saw that they were all connected. And then again, really not being able to handle hormones well, detox well, it all of a sudden kind of made sense. So now I have this whole new system where I work with people, because we have all these different layers, but if you don't ever get to the root cause, all we're doing is removing triggers.
I think something that would be great, because I know a lot of coaches, even when I had clients, even when I would go to, a doctor or even a practitioner, I had all of these problems, but it was really hard for me to identify what they were. So give even a few examples, because when people who are struggling, not on the other side, we say, I have all these hormonal issues or all these problems detoxifying. You give a few examples for somebody who is in that, what I call, they're like, I don't know, I just feel off.
Right. Well, and I would say, there's a lot of things that we normalize that aren't normal. So people say, oh, I don't know, I get headaches, all the time, or I get them often. So headaches are not a normal symptom that everything is okay in your body. The same, super difficult cramps, really heavy periods, things like that. Those aren't normal. They shouldn't really be happening. You can feel uncomfortable, but you shouldn't have major issues, at ovulation or during your period or after your period. Extreme fatigue. A lot of people are in this cycle with just using a lot of caffeine to get going in the morning, not being able to get really great sleep. So there's all these things that people say that are just part of normal life that aren't normal. Like that, if you don't sleep well, that's a problem that needs to be remedied. If you're not getting good quality sleep, it's pretty hard to fix anything.
So what is kind of the system that you are using that you have found to just not only change your life, but really help with your clients?
So one thing that I like is, so I love pairing sort of different things. So in Chinese medicine, we go a lot on symptoms, like the appearance of someone, their tongue, their pulse, things like that. And, but I really love data. So now I love pairing with these cool, and in my opinion, these new amazing labs that can really just pinpoint what's happening. Because like in Chinese medicine, we talk about something, let's say, for example, it's called dampness. Well, dampness could be candida, it can be a bunch of different things. A lot of it's based on digestion, but I mean, the fact that it could be mold or candida or just the foods that you're eating, digestive disturbances. Now labs can help me pinpoint exactly what it is. And so then that targets my whole system of how I work about attacking that and creating kind of like a long plan to resolve it. So before, it was more generalized, and now I'm pretty targeted with what I do. And the fact that there's layers of things, and that you also, my big thing now to make sure, and a lot of people, this is so crucial, is to prime your body before you start attacking or using any kind of like antimicrobials or killing agents, because your body is pretty backed up either with stress or, not eliminating well, or so many different things that if you don't prime that, you're going to feel sick. And my whole goal is to try to make someone feel as good as possible with as minimal side effects as possible. Because if you're someone who gets, reactivation of things or flare-ups, like, how bad it is, or for some people that get a Herxheimer reaction, a lot of those can be avoided if you do things, in my opinion, the right way and based on each individual. Everything needs to be customized is my thing, because constitution is everything. And then constitution plus genetics is like the winning combo for me.
I remember I had so many clients would come to me and they would say, I love working with you because you always listen to me. You always listen to me and say, somebody put me on a detox once and like I threw up daily.
Yeah.
And I remember
and they're like, just keep doing it.
Oh, you're throwing up from the detox. And I remember teaching at a detox school, and it was no herbs. There was nothing. There was just raw food. And I watched this woman vomit so hard, so profusely that she went to the hospital. Yeah. And it was wheatgrass, and she must have been so toxic. Yeah. And I'll never
forget her system.
Like just blew up her system. Forget also watching, I think I had a family member in on another occasion, and we went and got a wheatgrass shot, and I watched them turn green. And my daughter had said, Mom, and she was shaking me because a family member turned green, and she was like, Mommy, I think they're going to throw up. And I said, no, honey, they're just really toxic, and I think that they need to sit down, because what I knew is that I'm a great detoxer, but I'm not a great remiliator, which for those of you not listening, for those of you who don't know that word, it means not a great rebuilder.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband is not a great detoxer, but he's a great rebuilder, because if I give him or my daughter one thing, detox, he breaks out in this huge rash. So I've learned, over the many years, and with our genetics, which is a beautiful gateway into really understanding constitution, who we are, how we process, that we're also different. And that I know that made me a really good coach, because understanding how to really listen to that person, know that they know their gut, they know their gut instinct, and they know their body, and not to just push, because we do all detoxify different, and also our stress levels are different,
right?
Our worries are different, and our ability to sweat, as hormones like our thyroid and all our liver and our pancreas and our insulin and all those factors are so important. It's not just, go on a detox because, oh my God, Gwyneth Paltrow said it was cool. It's prep your body and prime.
Here's this little packet of herbs to do it.
Exactly. I mean, what would you say for anyone that is listening? What are your favorite primers for just getting your body, at least to be priming for just this world that we live in, which I feel is so much more toxic?
Well, I use a couple. I try to narrow some of my lines down because there's so many, you know what I mean? And there's so many different things to do. I use a lot of a company called Cellcore, which I really love. They have a lot of fulvic and humic acids in some of their products. And they go into like the quantum mechanics behind every single product and why anything is in there. It's very targeted and specific. So I love them. I use, did you want brands? Is that what you mean? I use Designs for Health a lot, but I basically also make sure, that like sleep is optimized, hydration is optimized. Most people, I mean, including myself a lot, we just don't drink enough water. And water is crucial when you're detoxing. So, and the same with elimination. If someone's not going to the bathroom twice a day and they're trying to go on a detox, it's going to be a problem. So if some of those key factors are not in place, like that's where we have to start. And then I'm a huge person to get sugar out. It's like a lot of people can start the pathway of at least getting into more clean eating. And that already for some people goes really far. For people who have a lot of body burden and too many toxins, or like for me, I've been eating clean for so many years that if I do eat something that's not clean, I feel it, but I need something that's like a lot more hardcore at this point. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like I live a cleaner life to be prepping all the time. But I still do targeted detoxes every season. I'm a huge fan of that. That's one reason how we met too, is because, in Chinese medicine, it's crucial. You change what you're doing based on the season. And I just also, and again, those are some of the old school herbalists that I did study with when I was a lot younger. And I really think that that's very important. And then changing the foods we eat with the season. That was a big aspect of what I did for part of my work in my doctorate too, because in Chinese medicine, you eat with the season. We've gone away from all these amazing traditions that are very old, and they have a really big place, I think, today still. And they can be modified. I mean, I'm in California. California winter is not the same, as winter, and same Florida winter is not the same as like if we lived in Montana. But again, we still need to customize to our constitution.
Yeah, I always say, and it's interesting because I thought when I moved from Philadelphia to Florida, there's no way that I'm going to still do these seasonal detoxes, because when I got really sick, I always say when the trash can really spilled over, even though I had been, even though I had asthma and was on so many medications and was in and out of the hospital and had been on life support, I don't feel like my body really shut down. Like I think I was pooping yellow at one time. Once a week. That's how I started. That's how I started just saying, okay, done, on the search. And I was on a search because I just felt that I was at a point where I was hopeless. And I think that's the part of, of this talk even today. It's that you get to a point, and I know any coach will understand this. We all get to a point where we say, I'm just going to keep digging so that I can save that pain for somebody else. Because as you said, not everyone is maybe like us. Some people, they add in hydration, they take away gluten, they take away eggs, they take away dairy, and
their life changes.
Wow, man. And maybe it would have been if I would have done that at 14 when I got there. Maybe if one person would have said, you have to do this. But when I was 25 and that trash can really spilled over, I just felt like everything was completely gone. And that's when the heavy metals, the everything.
Yeah.
And so I look back and I think if I would have really understood the root core of disease then.
Mm-hmm.
Just been able to hire somebody like you, which worked in a functional medicine, office, and was so blessed to have all these people in one spot to help me connect the dots.
Right.
Because I think of similar journeys like us, and for moms out there who really thought we had cleaned up the terrain. And
oh yeah, for sure.
Because, looking back, I'm like, man, if I thought that I had done a lot, and I did do a lot,
right?
Not enough, and no shame and blame, just to really, say to any person out there who's still struggling,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we think it's just still our fault, but there's still another door to open.
Yes, yeah. There's always layers and fine tuning, and I think that's the thing too. Is this like, I'm sure people say this to you all the time. They're like, well, if you feel like this, you're one of the cleanest person that I know, or you're always eating healthy, or, XYZ. How can you still have these things going on? And again, to me, it's the Constitution. Other people, I think, don't feel as much from food, you know what I mean? Or they basically, I think that things will catch up with them later, but we just are more sensitive and feel them much earlier, and like when it's actually kind of happening, you know what I mean? So I think it's always interesting because, we're just very different. And I think that I'd much rather, my whole thing is prevention. I'd much rather do all these things to clean up and try to possibly prevent something in the future that I don't know could turn into something worse. But there's a lot to clean up. I mean, our lifestyle, even when you are healthy, it all just accumulates unless you've done things to get it out. And then again, the things you've been doing to get it out, it might have just been, there's a lot of layers to it because it's a lot of years in the making. We probably grew up on, even though I was healthy, I went to McDonald's as a little kid and ate, got treats from 7-Eleven and things. Like, it was just normal life.
We all did. We had Slurpee.
Exactly, yeah.
One of the things that I talk about often, and you feel the same, is we do live in a different world. We live in that's more toxic. And I know that you talk about this all the time, of this, how vital it is to look at this layer of epigenetics, layer of root disease, this layer, because we do live in a different world where there's not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore.
No.
When I look at even the work of Peter Dalmo, which I loved so many years ago, and I'm not devaluing any of his work, but that model doesn't fit anymore.
Right.
This type of world. And so when I hear you talk a lot about mold and viruses and fungus and Lyme and all the different and these things that are so present, I sit there and I think about, as I've watched in the many years, cancer on the rise, kids who are being diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, autism, people who are left and right having, where autoimmune is standard. As you were saying, headaches are not standard. All these things, I don't think that it's just there's more diagnosis. I think that there's more health issues.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I think it's just this one thing. I think it's that there's more toxins, there's more stress, there's everything.
Yeah. No, agreed. And that's the thing is there's some bodies that can handle it better and some can't. And I think a lot of them can't. And especially as we see, even like your kids are a little older than mine, but my little one's 8. And I mean, even just right now, the amount of stress that they've lived through in just this last year or two, like we've had a couple other, like fires in Malibu, and like there's just been a whole bunch of things, and then this, it's like they have a totally different, and like emotional landscape than even some of the things that we grew up with. And I think a lot of the food has been cleaned up, but then at the same time, a lot of it's sort of saturated. Like you can't, and even though when you buy your own food and it's organic, anytime you eat out, it's not. And it's, it's permeated with a lot of pesticides.
That's, I think that's even if you can afford to back.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think this, I think this world is just, I think there's a lot of work that we all have to do. And I think the beauty of this kind of education and kind of waking up that I do see, as much as we're all struggling in this new terrain of life and trying to figure out what it is, I think that there is a part that everyone is rising up and saying, hey, this one size fits all approach isn't so much working.
Right.
And how can we like pave this path for this generation so that they don't like suffer and have to struggle.
And what I would say too, and this is what I talk about a lot with the genetics or epigenetics, is that basically though, what I like is it's kind of like you're given this blueprint of possibilities and we have the control over what we do. So we get to pick, what outcomes we can have and minimize these things that could be potential issues. And then the other thing is, we're both on the same page with this. The mindset's really huge. What we do, and, kind of, it sounds sort of silly, but there's even a lot of science with how we talk to ourselves or, the things that we do. There's this amazing article, and it was this whole area of medicine that's basically, like how your thoughts affect your immune system. So we have a lot of control, even though I know I always seem to be sort of like the bearer of bad news with like, like just drink out of glass and, that's kind of, there's lead in your lipstick. Like I feel like everything I'm saying, people are like, are you going to take this away from me too? And I'm like, that's not the point. I'm just trying to give you, options because you pick what you buy, right? Like you're paying your dollars behind like a conscious choice or like maybe a choice that's not as great for your health. And most of the time people just don't know the difference. They're listening to commercials or whatever it might be. And so my goal is to make it easy and simple and at least give people options. But, sometimes people are just like, well, this world is so toxic, I give up. Like, I'm just going to eat what I want and, deal with the consequences. But to me, there's great options, and you don't have to eat sugar and junk that isn't good for you. But again, it's your choice.
I was saying this to another coach. I think it just feels overwhelming. And that's what I hope we get to, is that in this world where it feels easier to make those choices. It feels easier that it's not like you're like, I'm the weird one or I'm the one that's telling you to take away. Because my kids used to be like, Mom, you don't let us eat this, you don't let us eat that. And it did take time for me to be like, this is why. Like, because I don't want you to, be like this. And I think it just, sometimes it feels like we're walking alone, but you know what? Sometimes it takes that for a change. And so I'd rather at times walk alone. And that's why I value you. And that's why I value you being here, because it does take that person to be the leader and to be the example. And I would rather that with you than to have somebody who doesn't have that education, because it's really hard. And I do love EWG, but that's overwhelming. It is overwhelming for me. It's a great guide, but it's hard to find, what to do and what brand to use and all that different stuff.
And I was, I was so obsessed with this. My friend and I in acupuncture school started our own skincare line because we couldn't find anything clean enough. And this was like 14 years ago now. And so we basically just made it and formulated it using Chinese herbs and all clean ingredients and only in glass, of course, because I was obsessed with that. And it's crazy because even the EWG, like people can tailor their formulations to make zeros, just, you know what I mean? Because they'll leave out key ingredients because it will give a higher rating because it's an essential oil that has a citrus, which has a higher allergy possible issue. So that's the thing is, it's like there's still flaws within a system, but it's amazing. The amount of research in that in what they do was amazing and is amazing. And it is helpful. And so now I just kind of, it's the same. It's like, if you can give guides that are just like my top beauty brands, do you know what I mean? Things that are super simple switches. And again, it's like the same. There's so many easy things that are just habits that people need to break, if possible, that you can just switch things and they have a huge effect. Like even just the thing of not buying plastic water bottles, like that's a huge one that has a big effect, and it'll have a long effect for years. So, or the same, but that like what you put on your face, in your body, those are really, really crucial. So yeah, there's always easy swaps, in my opinion. It's like when you swap out the foods too.
Because I think I think that we're busier in the world.
Yeah.
That, you know, when it's easy and when it's doable, and even though it feels hard, I know one thing that motivates people, and that is when sickness comes, pain comes, and when those kind of things where they're willing to make a change. And I know for anybody watching, can you tell them where to find you? So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, get their epigenetics done, work with you, you know, they can.
Yeah, and so my website is drashley.com, just drashley.com. I always offer free, like a complimentary 30-minute call to see if we're a good fit, if I can help you and see what's going on. But yeah, there's always a lot to do, even some minor tweaks in people, especially with moms with fatigue. There's usually so many root causes, and that's kind of like a spot for me that I'm very passionate about, because it's something that I've dealt with, all my friends have dealt with. Pretty much we're never the same after we've had a child, and energy wise, of course. And so yeah, the more people I can help, the better. That's my main goal. And like I said, and how you've said, is often there's some minor tweaks that can help a lot of people feel better. It's, when you need a longer program, that's also what I love to do. But there's so many ways that people can just really optimize their health and get energy back and just live a more fulfilling and energetic life.
Yeah, and not feel freaking alone. I think that's the other thing. Not feel like you have to do your health journey alone. Because
yes, and actually people should not do that alone, because people are always, asking me questions about what they've seen on Instagram. Is this a good product? And, all these different things. And I just keep going back to kind of like, I'm not sure why you're, picking something off of here. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. So again, it's the same, like someone reads something in a book and then they go on that plan and they're like, I feel worse. So it's, again, I just always urge that someone actually works with a specialist.
Yeah, it's what we were saying, even at like that midsection of this show, you have to, these days, you have to work with somebody and have that plan specific for you. Like they have to work with you. And I wish those days were not around, because much easier maybe to just buy a book, but I just don't think we're shaped that way with the amount of toxins, the amount of stress, the amount of just stuff in the world.
Right.
And God bless you if you are, because you're part of the world that's just doing fine eating McDonald's all day. All right. Thank you so much, guys. If you have any questions about working with Ashley, reach out to her. Her Instagram is great. And with that being said, guys, we will see you on the flip side. Peace out.